Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, I'm bringing you something you've never seen before. And I have to give props where props are due. So first off, I need to thank Christopher for inspiring me to make this build. Christopher ESO is a builder for PvP. He does some amazing builds. If you guys haven't seen his stuff, check the link in the description below. You can find his stuff there. He does a lot of really cool PvP builds, and he put this out by somebody else. I don't remember the person's name, but they used something similar to this, but this is more PvE orientated than it is PvP, so I'm just kind of showing it off, and it's pretty crazy. So, but it's my own interpretation. So let's get right into it. We are a Dark Elf Dragon Knight. That is literally BIS for this build. You cannot get anything better than the Dark Elf for this. High Elf works, but it's not the same. You can use a lot of different races, but again, not the same as a Dark Elf. Dark Elf is hands down the best for this. As you can see, we do have a low magic recovery and stamina recovery, but that's okay. We are a Dragon Knight, so we are going to be using Helping Hands. We are going to be using different things to buff our capabilities in keeping our resources maintained through the class itself. We have an 18k magic F, 24k max health, 29k stamina, and our weapon damage is coming in at 2642 with a 50% crit almost. And then we have a 30% magic crit, which is really good, along with the 1571 spell damage. And then fully buffed, just so you guys can see this, I gotta close this down because this is gonna drive me nuts. But so you guys can see, when we buff up, and this is just with that, we go up to a 3286 weapon damage with a 1885. We actually go to almost 2500 spell damage with a almost 4k weapon damage, and still these crits at these levels, which is just really, really good. Now, our spell resistance and physical resistance are low, but do not fret, guys, again, because when we buff up with our buffs, we go to 21k physical resist with a 22k spell resist. This helps improve our shield strength on Bone Shield and allows us to have really good survivability. And before anyone else asks, can this thing solo Maelstrom Arena? Yes, it can. It's actually really good at it. So, we are running the Lover Mundus Stone for the extra spell and physical pin, and the way we have our CP set up really help empower that a lot. So, going on down here, we do use Tri-Stat Food. Tri-Stat Food is the best for this because of how much extra stats it does give us. So, that Tri-Stat Food, man, let me tell you, it really beefs things up. Moving on to the gear sets, starting with our monster, or with our pots and everything. Should do that first. You can also run dual wield with this. Crusher, you want hardening on one, and you want fire damage on the other, and you want them both infused. Just telling you now, after testing several different things. But with this, you want to use Tri-Stat Food, Longfin and Pasty Melon Sauce with the Tripods. Best results with that. Moving on to the monster set, and this is going to be the thing that does it all. We are using Vulcan Scoria, guys. This thing is a beast of a set. As you can see, it's got an 8% proc chance, but that proc chance doesn't matter because you're doing so much dots that this thing procs like crazy. It has a 5-second cooldown, and it goes off every 5 seconds just about. As you can see, it does 11,790 flame damage to the target with a 5,480 flame damage to all other enemies within 5 meters. So it's got some AoE to it, which is nice. But that main upfront damage is what makes this build work super, super good. Now, moving on to the next set. This is the one that's going to throw people off because they're not going to quite understand, but we are running 2-throw. The reason we're running 2-throw is because of the 5-piece bonus. Gain that major savagery, increasing your weapon critical by 2191. Remember, we're using tripods, so you can't get major savagery from using a pot. You need to have this set. This set is really good for this. So, and then next up, the other set we're running, and this is going to be the next one that's going to throw people off, is we are running the fire set. Fire is holy cow. It's got a 2-second cooldown, 20% chance to proc at 5,240 flame damage. This thing procs every 2 seconds because of how many dots we have. This thing is OP as heck. So with this combination, you can push your DPS pretty high. So going over the traits real quick, the enchants, all that stuff. The traits on the gear, like with any build that is playing a setup like this, we have a Nirnhoned helm with a reinforced shoulder, and then everything else is Nirnhoned. The reason you want everything else Nirnhoned, oh, besides the chest, which is reinforced, is because you want those high resistances to keep that survivability up. Now, if you're playing this build in anything other than solo play, it's better to go 3 infused here, and then go divines here, or go Nirnhoned, reinforced, Nirnhoned with these divines. This is going to give you really good survivability. It's going to give you greater DPS output because it will push that Lover Mundus Stone up. And then on top of that, it just boosts you out overall for DPS. Moving on to the jewelry, we are running 2 healthy enchants here, or 2 healthy rings here, traits, with the weapon damage enchants. You can go infused here, guys, to give you the greater weapon damage, which is really good. But if you're going to do that, go 1 weapon damage, 1 spell damage. The reason I say that is because you've got to boost both of them. Moving on over here, we are using an Infused Necklace with magic recovery. Now, everyone keeps asking me, why do you keep doing this on your solo builds? Why do you keep putting all this magic recovery on them? Because we use a lot of magic abilities. When you use a lot of magic abilities, you need resources to bring that stuff back. So this helps. And then when you're using Tri-Stat pods, if you look, our magic recovery goes to 1,066. We're not popping magic constantly, but you're using enough that you want that magic recovery. Oops. Going on to the gear again. So onto the weapons, we are using a 2-handed here with infused and a weapon, a fire damage enchant. This is actually really, really good because of being a dark elf, how much we have in our CP and everything. We have a 10% increase to fire damage total. So that gets boosted by 10%, very much like a poison enchant. So it does the same damage as a poison enchant or a other one. So it's just good. And then next up, we do have a bow infused with a weapon damage enchant. This increases both spell and weapon damage, guys, by 452. So we boost this up really high with this setup. So, and that's what we're running for gear, traits, and Mundus Stones, all that stuff. Now let's get into the skills. Class skills, make sure you get all your class passives. It's very important, especially with this build. You really want to make sure you have all these up. I did try the build with Igneous, and I do want to show you this. So even with 23k health, or 24k health, Igneous Shield is just too small. It is too small. That's why we are using Bone Shield. And I will go ahead and change that out real quick. So going over this, you want to make sure you get all your class passives. On your weapon passives, if you're using 2-handed, you want all the 2-handed passives and the bow passives. If you're going dual wield, you want to go with all the dual wield passives. And the only thing you need from dual wield is Blood Craze. You do not want Rending Slashes because you want that dot heal from this. And that's why you want to use an infused hardening enchant on one and a infused fire enchant on the other, because that shield is what you need. You need that extra reinforcement to keep your character alive. Moving on to the armor. Light armor, you want the top 3. Medium armor, you want all of them. Heavy armor, you want the top 3 again. And then moving on to the world skills. Soul magic, you definitely want these 2. And you can be a vampire with this build, which is pretty good because you're a dark elf. You do get fire resistance, which almost counters what the fire damage you take extra. Moving on to Fighters Guild, you want all the Fighters Guild passives, guys. All the top 3 at least. Mages Guild, you only need Persuasive Will and Magicka Controller because you are using Inner Light on both bars. And this is where I want to talk about that Tooth Row set. Tooth Row gives us major savagery. This gives us Major Prophecy. So because of that, when you look here, we have Major Savagery and Major Prophecy up at all times. So we can get that higher spell crit and that higher weapon crit. But on top of that, we also get a lot of extra max magicka, which we need for this build to work properly. Undaunted, you want the Undaunted passives. Racial passives, you definitely want. We're not using any Alliance War skills, and I've talked to several people about this, and a lot of people are like, well, Vigor heals for a lot. And it does. But this way you don't have to go into PvP to get the skills. You can just make the build with what you have. If you want Vigor, and it is a very powerful heal because it does heal for a lot, the problem with Vigor is you have to cast it a lot. So it's no different than using this, and this is a magicka heal, and it heals for a lot. So, and it's more of a burst heal. But Vigor does help a little bit better on this end because it is a stam heal, and as you can see here, it heals for 11,000 over 5 seconds, and this heals for 36% of your max health, or your missing health. So, but this also gives you major fortitude, major endurance, and minor vitality. This increases your stam recovery, this increases your healing recovery, and your healing received. So when you need to heal yourself, you pop your back bar, because you do also get 12% healing received from this, Burning Embers. While a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. This helps on the back bar with this here. So this will give you the health recovery, and it gives you the healing received. But that health recovery and healing received play well with each other, but they play better when this is active first, or this is active first. So that's why when you're on your back bar, you're gonna pop your Hardened Armor first to get that 12% healing, and then you pop your Green Dragon's Blood. That way you have that 12% healing already there. And then if you need more health, you can pop it again, and it'll heal you again for extra heals. Because now you have 12% plus 8%. You have a 20% healing received. So, alright. So racial passives, especially this on a Dark Elf. Flame damage increased by 7%. And then you get flame resistance here by 2,079. Plus you get 3% max magicka. You end up with 9% max magicka, 6% stamina. Moving on to alchemy, medicinal use, and then with jewel provisioning, Gorman and Connoisseur. I almost screwed up again. So, moving on to the skills. Now, these are best for solo play. When you're soloing dungeons, like normal dungeons, even veteran dungeons, or you're soloing Maelstrom, or you're soloing, or you're even playing in Dragonstar Arena, and you're trying to do it with a group that doesn't require a healer or a tank, you can do it with this kind of a group of 4 of these. You can take literally four Dragon Rages into Dragonstar Arena and complete it on veteran. That group would be super OP in there. But going over the skills, we are using Brawler, because Brawler gives us a damage shield, and it is a super incredible, powerful damage shield. But it's the damage that it does that helps. It does physical damage, and it does bleed damage. And this does go up by a little bit, not a whole lot. So I'll show you guys these buffed up so you guys can see. This goes up to about 7k damage over 10 seconds. But when you have the extra, it goes up to almost 8k damage over 10 seconds. So that's kind of nice. It also gives, the shield strength also grows based on weapon damage as well. So it's really important to get that extra weapon damage. You want to boost this shield as high as you can get it. And when the shield is hitting on one enemy and giving you a 6k shield, that's really good. So, and then any enemy hit with this ability, Brawler, does get the dot as well. So they take the physical damage, then they take the bleed damage on top of it, and then each enemy hit increases the shield strength by 100%. So the more enemies you have that you're fighting, the bigger the shield this thing gets. Next ability on our bar, and this is kind of awkward because this is more of a stamina build, but we are using Engulfing Flames. Engulfing Flames, as you can see, does 1,226 flame damage, but let me go ahead again and buff up so you guys can see. This goes up to 1,341. It actually goes up to like 1,500, and then with a 6k flame damage over 10 seconds. Affected enemies take 10% more damage from all fire damage attacks. So any enemy you hit with this is going to take more damage. Remember, most of the stuff we have, proc sets our weapon enchant, all that is fire damage. So this will boost all that damage. So you want to get this off as quick as you can on those enemies to make all those other things take more damage for 10 seconds. On top of that, you can also ignite people on fire with it, and you'll get the, where is it? Searing Heat? No. World in Ruin. You get this. So it increases the damage of your flame area of effect abilities by 6%. So this is already increased by 6%, but also your other sets are increased by 6% because they do area of effect damage. So. Well, only one does. Next up, we have Bone Shield. We have Spike Bone Shield, actually, because this gives us a shield that absorbs 34% of our max health for 10 seconds and returns 40% of the direct damage it absorbs back to the enemy. It does really good at that. Really good. And then also, if you're in a group, again, synergy. It's nice. Moving on to the next skill, Green Dragon's Blood. Great heal. Like I said, I explained the major fortitude, endurance, vitality, why it's good to have that. Stam recovery, it's nice because when you have this up and you pop your pot, you actually go up to a 719 stam recovery with 1066 magic recovery. I know that that's not much, but this does play into help when you heavy attack, because when you heavy attack you will get this back too. So you get your heavy attack plus that. On top of that, it's just good overall. Next on our bar is Inner Light. We have this here for the Major Prophecy and the Max Magicka increase. We do get 7%, not 5%, because we do have the passive in the Mage's skill that increases any skill we have on our bar by 2% Magicka. So we get 7% Max Magicka for having this here. Really good for this. Next up, Flawless Dawnbreaker. Our main ultimate. We are going to be dropping this as much as we can because every time we drop an ultimate, we do get the, not Helping Hands, Battle Roar. So every time we drop an ultimate, we get 50 health, 46 magicka, and stamina for each point of ultimate we use. So we get like 4k back. It's incredible. Moving on to the back bar, we have Venom Arrow. Now I know a lot of people keep asking, it's telling me poison injection's better, but in the case of solo play, Venom Arrow is better. The reason Venom Arrow is better is because it does damage over time, and if the enemy is hit, is casting an ability, they are interrupted, set off balance, and stunned for 3 seconds. So that's why we use it. Next up, Endless Hail. More damage, guys. That's what this build's all about. It's about dealing damage and surviving it. Next up, we have Igneous Weapons. This gives us Major Sorcery and Major Brutality, increasing both spell and weapon damage. Anytime we activate this ability, we do get Mountain's Blessing, which gives us Minor Brutality for 20 seconds, increasing our weapon damage by 10%. And if you are in combat, you also generate 3 ultimate. This effect occurs once every 6 seconds. So just by having this passive unlocked, we get 3 ultimate. But every time we proc this, or activate this, we get Mountain's Blessing, the Minor Brutality. So we will be getting this up all the time. Every time you see that this comes off at the 20-second mark, not the 39.6, but the 20-second mark, you want to recast this, or as close to it as possible, because you want that Minor Brutality. Moving on, we do have Hardened Armor. This gives us our Major Ward, Major Resolve. It also gives us a damage shield for 17% of our max health for 6.9 seconds. And while active, your armor returns 703 magic damage to any enemy that uses direct damage against you. So those enemies that are getting proccing your bone shield damage are also going to get 703 magic damage against them. So they're getting 1,000 points of damage done to them because of it. Sometimes more. Next up, we have Inner Light. We have this here for the Prophecy and the increase to Max Magicka. Again, really important. Last but not least, the Standard of Might. This is really good because, one, any enemy you're fighting within the circle takes 2,652 flame damage over 1 second for 17 seconds. to enemies, applying Major Defile to them, reducing their healing received and health recovery by 30%. But standing in the circle increases your damage done and reduces damage taken by 15%. It's also a synergy, but it's that 15% that really plays into it. You want to use that before you start Dawnbreakering people, because this will help improve your damage. I usually let this, my ultimate build up to where I have that when I'm fighting bosses, because it really helps. Alright, before we get into showing this build off, I need to go over CP again. 66 in Ironclad. This reduces your damage taken from direct damage attacks by 22%. Moving on over here, we have 31 into Thick Skin. This increases our direct damage taken, or increases or reduces our damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. And did I have? Yep, I have 21 also into Medium Armor Focus. There's a reason why I have this here, by the way. It's to boost my physical resistance. If I didn't have that 21 there, my physical resistance would be way lower. It'd be like 12k. So that really helps out having that in the CP. And we did give up something else for it, but that's okay. We do have 56 in the Hardy. This reduces damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 12%, and then 56 into Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage, and Elemental Defender, reducing that all by 12%. So if you didn't know, Thick Skin stacks with both of these, so that takes you up to 25% damage reduction from damage over time effects, and then when you add this in, we actually get 44% or 34% reduced damage from physical poison disease damage. So that's really good. With the higher resistances, everything, we get really good survivability out of this. Moving on over here, we do have 40 points in the Bastion, and that is for our Bone Shield and our Spiked Armor. Because when we use that Spiked Armor, just so you guys can see, we do get a 4k shield for 6.9 seconds. And then if you pop your Bone Shield too, it goes up to 12k, and then your Brawler, you can get up to roughly about 20k, 30k damage shields. It's crazy. Moving on to the Green Tree, we have 56 in a Warlord, reducing break free cost by 20%. 23 in a Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 14%. We are in medium armor, so we get extra reduced sprint stuff. And then 23 in a Bashing Focus, because you will be bashing with this build, increasing that or reducing that bash cost by 14%. Moving on to the Middle Tree, 43 into Arcanist. This increases magic recovery by 10%. Now, if you don't want to put 43 in here, you really don't need to. That's if you're not playing for Magicka. If you are playing for Magicka, you need this here. So, 43% in Tenacity, increasing Magicka stamina recovery by fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. We are only going to get stamina back from our heavy attacks. That's why we focus this build more towards heavy attacks. So, moving on over here, we have 56 in a Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 20%. 26 in a Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 11%. You will be doing a lot of light and heavy attacks with this build, by the way. So there's a reason why this next area is set up the way it is. So we have 43 into Bless. This increases our healing done by 10%. We have 40 into Elfborn. This increases critical damage done with our critical heals and magic by 16%. And then we have 11, only 11, into Elemental Expert. Because if you see, it gives us 3% increase. With the 11, or the 7 we get for being a Dark Elf, we actually go to a 10% increase in fire damage. And that's all we really need. Next up, we have 7 into Spell Erosion. This increases spell penetration by 713. We need that. That adds to the Lover Mundus Stone, so it takes us up to about a 4k spell penetration, which is really good. Or 3k? 3k. Moving on over here, we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert, increasing our light and heavy attacks by 10% with all physical melee weapons, including bow. And then 40 into Mastered Arms, increasing our direct damage done by 16%, also very important. And then moving on over here, we have 43 into Mighty. This increases physical poison disease damage by 10%. We're just doing physical, so as you can see, we get 10% here, 10% from fire. Overall, really good trade-off. And then we have 23 into Thaumaturge. This increases our damage done with damage over time by 23%. Now, something you can do, if you want to, is you can take out of this And I think you want to go down to 23. And then you can take this up to 40 and get 16%. This is actually going to boost your damage over time. So this is actually a little bit better of a setup than this, because you don't do a lot of direct damage with a two-hander. You do a lot of damage, like area of effect damage with it, even though the initial hit is direct damage, but that damage over time is going to be more important for you because you're using a lot more damage over time abilities. Such as this got boosted. This gets boosted. This gets boosted. All these things get boosted by that damage over time, plus your Endless Hail does get not a small increase, but it does get a minor buff from it. So, and to finish up with the CP, or did I did finish up with the CP. So, and then we have 7 into piercing to give us the 713 physical pen. Altogether, like I said, this thing has about a 3k on the penetration values, so not quite as good as I'd like, but it still works out. But let's go ahead and see this build in action, guys, for you to see this all. You want to keep your dots up as much as possible to keep that set going. Your and that because they did that change, by the way, that they did to the Templars, the DK's got it as well with their fire breath, so you can actually like spread it around if you want to. Oops, I hit the wrong button. And as you guys can see, this thing just deals damage. It's really pretty decent. Now that the boss is up, oops, did the wrong skill, holy cow. There we go. Sorry, it's really hard to see because my mic is literally right in front of my skills. So alright, this guy's bugging out now. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. But that way you guys can see how the build works. It actually works out really well. It's a really fun build to play. Probably out of all the builds I've made so far, people ask me, what's your favorite build that you've got coming out this update? This is it, guys. This is literally it. Besides the Death Knight, the Shadow Knight, this is the main one that really just hit it out of the park for me. It's got good survivability. It's got great resource management. It's got everything. And it does hybrid play. So, both magic and stamina. Something people have been asking for a long time, and this thing does it like a powerhouse. And I love it. I think it's just incredible. So, there you guys go. That is Dragon's Rage. I hope you guys like it. And of course, you guys know what to need to do now. If you guys do like it, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.